let's talk more. Let's talk this through by speaking with an African affairs analyst, Ademola Oshodi. Thank you so much for joining us on World Now. What does this ceasefire mean for Ethiopia? Does it look like the 2 years of devastating war that threatened it to tear the country apart might be coming to an end?
That's very optimistic. What we can hope for is a beginning of peace, as former President Olusegun Obasanjo said. It's not the beginning of peace. It's not the end of. It's not the beginning of the process. It's the beginning of the process. So there's still a lot of fine print. There's still a lot of implementation that will be rather controversial and maybe would cause a lot of friction between the warring parties. But this is hope, and it's the best we can get right now. At least people will stop dying. They'll be able to provide humanitarian assistance, which is the drought ridden Ethiopia, and they'll also be able to provide medical assistance. The people in Tigray and in the surrounding area are really in dire conditions, and this is the greatest hope they can be receiving after 2 years of devastating conflict.
Well, the conflict has killed tens of thousands of people, left hundreds of thousands facing famine, and destroyed health and education infrastructure across large parts of northern Ethiopia. Would you suggest some kind of resolutions, or better still, reparations, and to be paid by who? To whom?
The Americans are very much involved. The Americans organized secret meetings with the two warring parties, the Ethiopian government and the Tigrayan rebels. The Americans have provided or utilized carrot and stick method, which is threat and inducement. The issues of reparations, I believe, are something that could be seen further down the road. Right now, they need humanitarian assistance. They need to stop in conflict, and they need the Ethiopian country to be united towards a common goal, which is providing security and well-being for its vast population. It's the second largest country in Africa. So reparations will happen, especially the issues of war crime and unnecessary violence. There will be also a need for international assistance. I'm sure the Americans would have guaranteed some sort of financial aid to the Ethiopian government and the Tigrayan rebels to ensure that things are brought down to at least some form of stability and progress.
Yeah.
The United States, American ambassador to the United Nations, Ms. Thomas Greenfield, has been in the back end, pushing both sides and knocking their heads together. I want to believe she would have made some concessions and promises to them to ensure this is brought to an end.
Well, but then this will be the second time during the conflict that the two sides, cease hostilities. Recall that there was a 5-month ceasefire declared by the government in March, but the agreement fell apart with renewed fighting at the end of August. Do you think the agreement this time round is not a fragile one?
It is fragile. Eritrea, a major partner, a major force in the conflict, in support of the Ethiopian government. Eritrea is not involved in this peace process. There's also another region in Ethiopia called the Amaras. It's like another state, so to speak. They're also in conflict. They're also fighting with the Tigrayan. They are neighbors of the Tigrayan. They are also not involved in this peace agreement. So these two parties need to be aware, and they need to be brought on board, either through coercion or through threats, to lay down their arms also to stop aiding and aiding the Ethiopian government in its fight against Tigrayan. The Tigrayan people had dominated political life in Ethiopia for over 2 decades with Meles Zenawi. But now they've lost power and they can't come to terms with that. But it's important that there's a general national cohesion and freedom of expression, especially in election, that would provide some sort of semblance of national peace and growth in the country. They need the efforts of the international community, especially the African countries of I would say, Nigeria is a big player there with Obasanjo. There's also countries of South Africa that they also played a big role in the peace mediation. And we also have the Americans, and we have I think the Italians also to a certain degree. All this must come together to press on all warring parties to lay down their arms and let's start humanitarian assistance. There's a bad drought in famine right now in Ethiopia. People are dying. We don't hear about it because of the Ukrainian crisis and because of all the issues happening around the world. But people are dying, and this ceasefire would definitely help provide this sort of assistance to needed help there.
Well, the belligerent Ukrainian and Russian war, has had impact on the world economy. No doubt, this will also affect the country Ethiopia. One way they'll have their own fair share, despite the fact that they are also warring, within the country. What do you think how much would you say the international community or communities have actually done in order to bring this crisis to a full stop?
Well, we have to give credit first to the Americans. The Americans work behind the scene, pushing both the Ethiopian government of Abiy Ahmed and the Tigrayan rebels together. That's number one. The Americans played a big role. And then the South Africans also. South Africa played a big role in the secret meetings they had before this declaration of peace. We also have the Kenyan government in the form of former President Uhuru Kenyatta that played a big role also in bringing people together and providing that environment to handshake. And then we have the Nigerians, so the Obasanjo, the big statesman that has always played a role in providing and trying to facilitate peace around the continent. So all credit to all these individuals and states to help, but it comes down to the Ethiopians themselves. They have to make that effort. They have to provide that enable environment where people can assist and arms can be dropped. The raison d'etre of the Tigrayan rebels was to provide some sort of either independence or have some sort of confederation within Ethiopia. They didn't achieve that. They only brought this destruction to their region and affecting the Ethiopian economy. So we have an opportunity for them now to sit down and work together on how to provide some sort of a respect of their rights as a minority, and also ensure that the cohesion of the country is respected. Africa cannot afford to have breakaway regions or states. If that's the case, then it would just, everything will fall apart. There has to be some sort of purpose and again, respect of all individuals, all ethnic groups, to provide a united purpose and progress.
Right. We actually hope this deal endures for a longer time that would finally lead to a lasting peace. African Affairs analyst Ademola Oshodi, thank you so much for your insight.
Thank you.